Hello, everyone. My name is Gus.
Hi, I'm Woody.
Today we have another recommendation for us to react to. This is about cave diving deaths or perhaps caving deaths. I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. So we're just going to react live and see.
Yeah,
what
and
comes out of it.
anything different about
What
me?
do you mean?
You know,
Oh, that you're wearing for once the best colors?
I'm wearing these colors because I'm praying for you every day
Okay.
now. And I'm based on you know why.
All right.
I'm going to help you.
Uh-huh.
So can you feel
No.
by me wearing your hideous colors? I'm
That's
willing
not,
to do it
okay.
to help you.
That
That's
you
why I'm
started
doing this.
with
Is
the
in honor of
All right.
disrespect. It's in honor of Gus
This is a serious video.
being saved.
Let's watch.
Today we will be looking at two horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong.
Okay.
The second one in particular is an incident which will put you at unease, since the victims in it went through a terrible experience of being buried alive inside a narrow crawl space. As always, viewer discretion is advised.
No, it doesn't
On May
happen. It
11th,
shouldn't
1990, in the remote wilderness of Hernando County, Florida, the waters of Diapolder Sink No. 2 lay still,
Where is that?
concealing one of the largest and most treacherous underwater cave
Diapolder.
systems in the state.
You know it?
Few had dared to
I've never
explore
dived
its
it, but
full
I know.
depths, where the world turned black and the pressure of the abyss wrapped around the human body like an unrelenting force.
Who wrote this?
All right.
Who do you think
All right,
wrote
here
it?
we go.
Already
Here we go.
you know, right?
Here we go.
Mr. Chat GBT, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but just in case you haven't watched our videos in the past, this whole notion that because you're in an underwater cave, the cave itself is putting more pressure on you is complete and utter nonsense. There's no difference. If we could take a diver and blindfold them and put them 100 feet underwater, they would know if they're in open water or in a cave, or get ready for this, if they were at 100 feet or at 10 feet or at 210 feet. There is absolutely no difference. Once you're equalized, you cannot tell how deep you are or whether you're in open water or close.
Now,
or,
now some say,
On the
and it's true, the air you're breathing, particularly in a rebreather, can get denser. So the
Yeah.
work of breathing can increase. But I'll even go one step further. Most caves, most are fresh water.
Yeah,
It's actually less pressure than diving in the ocean.
That's right.
Salt is denser.
correct.
You even change your dive computer. That's why dive computers have a setting. Are you diving in salt water or are you diving in fresh water?
And even brackish, like half and half. Yeah,
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
it can change the decompression model because the pressure's different.
correct.
So,
So no, the caves themselves do not
like
put
the rock,
any more
the rock doesn't add.
It's complete. Not that. That is the first thing. If you're ever with somebody, which by the way, this happened to me. I don't know if I told you this story, but I was talking to somebody and they were telling me how they're getting ready to become cave divers and they're doing this training at Cave Adventurers. Have you heard of them? Like the guy's talking to me. He doesn't know who I am. So we're talking about it. And if you're ever with someone like that who's telling you stories about cave diving and they say something like, "Oh, in the cave, the pressure is way stronger," or whatever, immediately you know they're full of it. It's complete BS.
Totally. I don't have anything to add.
The water's edge, Michael Spears knelt beside his gear, double-checking every strap and hose. At 25 years old, he was an ambitious and skilled diver, but nowhere near as seasoned as his companion, Daniel. Michael had completed his cave diving certification just 5 months earlier, but he had already logged 75 cave dives.
Wow.
The sport fascinated him. How a person could navigate an alien world beneath the surface, squeezing through tight tunnels and gliding through cathedral-like chambers of submerged rock formations. Tonight, Michael and Daniel planned to dive into the lower circuit of Diapolder Sink. The visibility was poor. Recent rains had stirred up the sediment. But that didn't deter them. Michael had never dived this site before, and the challenge excited him. He wanted to prove he could handle the depths, just like the
Doesn't
veterans
really
admired.
look like a cave diver,
A few
but-
feet away, Daniel was methodically preparing his own equipment. At 34, he was the more experienced of the two, with over a decade of cave diving under his belt. He had seen his fair share of mishaps, some minor, others fatal. Cave diving wasn't just about skill, it was about discipline. A single mistake, a moment's
Jonathan
panic
Bird.
could mean
No
the difference
way.
between
That's
life
great.
and death.
Yeah. That
okay,
is.
so I want to go back and rewind it because I think he just said some nonsense again. It's weird to me that these guys that have these big YouTube channels and talking about cave diving tragedies and stuff like that cannot find content like videos of people cave diving. Like, how hard is it?
I don't think they're speaking, and I believe this is made with in video, because what you can do, and I've done it, you can go on in video and you can put in a bunch of words and descriptions. You type it. I would like a video about this cave death, cite the specific dates, the place, and all of that. And then it makes the entire video. It will grab public footage. It will grab public footage and it synthesizes a voice. It'll either synthesize your voice, so it can literally sound like you, but you're not talking, or you pick a voice.
Wow.
So that's what's happening. This sounds like an AI-made video.
So do you think, and I want you guys watching this to comment below and tell me what you think. Do you think the people that use NVIDIA, I've never heard of it.
I have.
Do you think the people that use that to build these YouTube channels and tell stories, do you think they just don't care about the quality of the work? Or do you think that, you say yes already, or do you think that it's just they don't know? Like, the people that make this, they don't know that they're not showing cave divers. Like, they probably think that these guys are about to jump in with a single tank on the back.
Both.
You think so?
Both of what you said.
They don't care and they don't know.
The fact that the don't care part is just that it's easy. It's like, I'm going to have a video made for me, the whole thing perfectly made within 10 minutes. It AI makes the whole video, everything.
Wow.
And they don't know. They think, yeah, that sounds about right.
Maybe that's why people watch us. We don't use any of that stuff. We don't have a script. We just talk.
And that's why a lot of times we say things that are absolutely nonsensical wrong and we get crushed.
And by a lot of times, you mean every video. So,
well, when you start talking about biology.
All right, let me hear back. I rewind it like 10 seconds because I want to hear. I think he made a claim, so let's listen.
Cave diving wasn't just about skill. It was about discipline. A single mistake, a moment's panic could mean the difference between life and death.
It's exaggerated, but don't beat them up on that. I mean, cave diving's dangerous.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
We go back and forth a lot on this. What we do. I like to say, you've heard me say it many times, and I'll get accused of repeating, cave diving is dangerous. It is.
Yeah.
We can't just pretend, well, it's really because of the human. No, it's inherently way more dangerous. Look at this video of Jonathan.
Yeah.
He can't get out of there.
I get it.
Quickly. He can't get out.
He's a Shangri-La on this video, by the way.
I know. I've been there, and I turned my head. So keep that in mind. It is dangerous.
But what I'm saying is, recently there was a death in Mariana. Okay. And I'm not going to go into details because, as usual, whenever there's a death in a cave or whatever, we're never the first ones to cover it. We wait until the research, all of the investigation is completed, and we can talk about facts. And then let's analyze the facts. If the facts are, after everything happens, that an experienced cave diver made one mistake and paid with their life, great, let's talk about it so we can learn and we don't make that mistake. If the facts are that this was a person who was not trained or not certified, or maybe they had a heart attack, then let's talk about that too. Because what happened is like, as soon as that happened, somebody posted in the Dive Talk group, the Facebook group, like, oh, this is why I don't understand how people cave dive. One mistake and it cost you your life. And I'm like,
I saw your
response. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my response was, we don't know what happened. If this person had a heart attack in a cave, it didn't matter that he was in a cave. He could have been in a hot tub and he would have died. So the whole point that, cave diving is dangerous because, look, this person died in a cave and he wouldn't have died in open water, without knowing why this person died, it's completely nonsensical, right? So the point is, can you make one mistake in cave diving and it can cost you your life? Yes. Like, for example, if you completely zone out line awareness, like you missed the line, you lost the line, you end up in a passage and you don't know where it is, or like, okay, you don't have a guideline to the exit, which is one of the rules of cave diving, then yes, that can cost you your life. If you're in open circuit, you can run out of air and drown. Yes, that can happen. But for the most part, we prepare as cave divers to have an issue. Like, I'm going in not expecting, not knowing that I'm going to have an issue. Of course, I expect not to have an issue, but I'm prepared for it. We both have had issues underwater with our rebreathers. We've put videos of you having an issue, like when we had an issue at with your ADV blowing up, complete catastrophic issue. You had to bail out. We prepare for it. We have an issue. We deal with a solution, and we exit safely. It's this whole notion that you have one mistake and you die is just exaggerated.
Agree.
So,
Last check, Daniel said, his voice steady. You good? Michael exhaled sharply, gripping his regulator. Yeah, let's do this. The two men stepped into the water, their movements deliberate and slow. Diapolder sink opened up beneath them like a gateway to another world. The entrance restriction, a narrow passage leading into the main cavern, was their first challenge. They maneuvered through it with precision, their headlights slicing through the murky water. By the time they reached the junction room, the visibility had worsened. The silt, disturbed by recent rains, swirled around them like an underwater sandstorm. The glow of their lights barely extended beyond their arms. They navigated cautiously, following the guideline, a thin rope that was their lifeline in the cave. In zero visibility, losing contact with it could be disastrous.
okay, that's true. If you lose contact with your line, you can die. But I want to talk about the low visibility, because a lot of people believe that when we go in caves, you're always just like in zero visibility, poor visibility. Why would anyone like that? Why would anyone cave dive if you can't even see anything? You don't go in caves that have no visibility. There's no point on doing that because you won't be able to see anything. However, we train to be ready to deal with no visibility. We can exit the cave, even thousands of feet into the cave. All of a sudden, something happens. You lose visibility. All your lights die. You can still exit in zero vis, like completely pitch black, blackout. We can still exit. But you don't go in a cave knowing there's zero vis. Now, having said that, sometimes you go in knowing that there's no visibility for a little bit before it gets better. El Diablo is a good example of it. We posted a video showing what that entrance looks like, which is zero vis for like the first 30 meters or 100 feet, and then it opens up and now you're in good visibility. Another good example of this was when we did Rocky Horror, when we went in at Mark Sink, which is a hole in the ground that you go in, that was zero visibility. And all of a sudden, you're just going down and you're just wedging yourself into the rocks. Remember, you get caught up and you have to twist and turn or whatever. It's like a chimney. You're going down in an invisible chimney that is full of water.
I love it, by the way.
Yeah. And you're just, going in and shaking in and out or whatever until pop, you just pop up and it's perfect vis.
Yes.
Completely crystal clear. Once you're down like 6 meters or so, 20 feet, it just opens up. Yep. So sometimes you go in with no visibility or poor visibility, but knowing that once you're inside, it will get better. If I knew that we're going to go in a cave and it's zero vis from beginning to end, I'm not going.
Same. And it depends on the cave, too, whether or not you can expect it to be clear once you get through that non-visible area. Because, for example, the Florida caves, for the most part, have a lot of flow.
Yeah.
They're springs. They're very high water level springs. They're blowing water out. So
yep.
If you do have a moment of non-visibility in those Florida caves, it's probably going to clear pretty quickly.
Right.
You still should have good technique. You don't want to silt it out. But those, most of them will clear. But
there
then
are a lot
there
more
are
forgiving.
some, like the Crystal Caves in the Abacos or some of the Mexican caves.
Yeah.
They don't have flow, or very little.
Yeah.
You could silt that out, and it could be bad for 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, depending on the type of silt, which is another question that we get a lot, is how long does it stay silted out? Depends on the silt.
And
sometimes the silt is made of like beach sand, that kind of thing, where you stir it up and it just falls down within seconds and it's clear again perfectly. And then sometimes it's this like clay that will stay in there for days.
Can't see a thing.
So you can't wait it out. It will literally be zero vis for days.
Unless it's high flow Florida
Unless
cave,
there's
that'll
flow
blow
and then
out.
it will take it and somebody else will deal with it.
As they reached the upper circuit line, the water cleared slightly, revealing massive rock formations. Here, they corrected their buoyancy, adjusted their positions, and exchanged the universal OK hand signal. Michael flashed an OK sign in return. He felt good,
Great.
confident. Then, they began their descent on the lower circuit line, deeper into the heart of the cave. As they dropped past 200 feet, The weight of the depths made itself known. Every breath required more effort, the compressed air feeling heavier in their lungs. The nitrogen in their tanks was turning against them, creeping into their systems and dulling their senses. This was nitrogen narcosis, a condition where breathing compressed air at great depths impairs judgment, slows reflexes, and clouds the mind like alcohol.
Yes.
Most divers experienced it below 130 feet, but beyond 200 feet, it became dangerously unpredictable. Halfway through the circuit, Daniel noticed something odd. Michael had drifted slightly below the guideline. It wasn't much, just a few feet at first, but then he descended faster.
By the way, we also deal with gases that don't make you have nitrogen narcosis, or not nearly as much, which is we add helium.
Correct.
So that's another level of training to dive with the appropriate gas. I don't like the feeling of being narked. And I think if you have a problem, it could become a really bigger problem when you're narked. You're not going to be able to multitask and deal with many issues. I just want to make sure you've heard me say it before, so I'm saying that again. Dive with the right gas. That's one of the 5 rules.
One of the 5 rules of cave diving, yeah.
As if drawn downward by an invisible force, Daniel reached out, trying to get his attention. But Michael surged ahead, his movements sharp, erratic. He wasn't just following the guideline anymore. He was pushing beyond it. Was he chasing a personal depth record? Daniel felt a flash of concern. They were already near 250 feet, where the water pressed against them like an iron vice.
That part's
The
crazy.
circuit would soon loop back toward the junction room.
Shangri-La again.
Guys, the water doesn't put pressure on the body, on the human body. The water pressure only affects gases. So only the compartments, I guess, the cavities, I guess, in your body that have air in them are affected by it, like your sinuses and your ears.
Yes.
But other than that, you don't feel like, you don't put your arm out and, oh my God, I'm getting crushed. No, because it's made of blood and bones and muscles that don't get affected.
The dry suit will, because it has a cavity in
Right.
it. It has the cavity you're talking about. It has air that's going to compress and squeeze the dry suit against your body. But your skin and tissues, you can't feel anything.
Yeah, there's this whole, every time he says the pressure of the cave felt around, it's all BS, made up nonsense.
They would have to re-enter the silted, low visibility zone.
That looks
Then,
like Brian.
The moment everything changed. As they neared the
looks like
junction
Todd.
room, the clear water vanished. A cloud of thick suspended sediment engulfed them, turning the cave into an endless void. The visibility dropped to nothing. Michael reached for the guideline, but his fingers missed it. A second attempt, another miss. Panic set in. Disoriented, he turned the wrong way.
He may have been.
Back into the cave instead of toward the exit. The moment Daniel passed into the murky water, he lost sight of his partner. Michael was gone.
That's
On the other
bad.
hand, Michael was fighting for his life. His heart pounded in his chest as he spun in the water, searching for any sign of light, a line, a familiar landmark. The cave was swallowing him whole. He saw a thin rope floating in the distance. A guideline? Desperate, he followed it, unaware that it wasn't the correct path. He had wandered into the downstream ballroom, an isolated chamber deep in the system. By now, his body was struggling. The deeper he went, the harder it was to breathe.
So there's no line there, or it's just silted out? I'm confused.
I think he's saying that there was line, but he found probably like a jump line to another room instead of the main line to the exit. So here's what happened.
So he lost
there's a
the
few
line.
things.
Michael lost the line too.
There's a few things that we can add clarity here, and I want you to chime in on this one. So one of the things that he said is he reached out for the line and couldn't get it, and then he reached out again and couldn't get it again, so he panicked or he got scared, whatever. During cave diving training, I would say out of the 8 days it takes, whatever it takes, like half of it is spent working with line. Lost line procedures, laying line, doing jumps, everything is just line work. There's a lot of line work. So what happens when you lose the line? Talk about that exercise.
Yeah.
By the way, this is not official training. We're not cave diving instructors. Don't take this as like gospel and go do it.
Easy cave dive instructors.
Exactly.
So, listen, you don't want to get lost further. That's setting the stage for the procedure. Okay? So what you do, you've lost the line. You always are carrying a spare reel or two. So step 1, tie off where you're at, because you're going to go look for the line. And at least you can get back to where you were. Okay, so you tie off, and then tied off, you're taking your line and you're feeling for the lost
Sweeping,
line.
yeah.
You're sweeping with your arm up and down. Now remember, you're on line as well. You're bringing the line that you just tied off with, so you can at least get back to that point. Because you could get back to that point, and by the way, maybe your buddy's there.
Well,
Maybe
I think
somebody's
the
there.
keyword that a lot of people miss is you don't want to get lost further.
Or
that's important.
You're just going in completely out of control. Now you're even further away.
Right.
So go back to the spot you're at, and because that enables you, by the way, to start another lost line search. You have a much better chance of finding the line by sort of making a circle around that tied off point, right? Than if you're just wandering anywhere. You may be going further and further away from the line you're looking for.
Yep.
We come back, start over, change your angle, sweep again. You're probably going to find it.
Correct.
It's got to be near you somewhere.
Right.
That's why we do that. And it also keeps you calm. It's a pretty good feeling to know I'm getting back to where I was.
You know what to do. Yeah. And that, by the way, that procedure, it's called a lost line procedure that Woody's describing, it's coupled with line awareness. It's understanding that, okay, last time I was swimming, the line was on my right and down, or on my right and by the ceiling, or whatever, because that will help you find the line. Like, oh, I just lost it. Okay, I remember it was down near the ground. So I'm going to go all the way to the ground, and then I'm going to sweep, right? That's why line awareness is important. So, like,
yes.
I've always talked about how we should make a video on like a first-person cave dive where like we have the camera in our helmet or something and narrate what is going through our brain. Because in my brain, I'm always like, okay, I'm talking to myself the whole time. Where is Woody? There's the line. My regulator necklace is here.
Yes.
My other regulator
and I
is here.
touch it. Do you touch
Okay,
it?
I got it.
I touch the regulators.
I touch everything. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm going here. I should be about 500 feet in. And then you look at the line and there will be arrows. And I just dropped my arrow.
This is very smart. I do the same.
Hold on, let me see if I can show you guys in case you haven't seen this. So this right here is a cave diving arrow. I'm going to put it close by. This one has my name on it, but it doesn't matter. What you typically see on these cave diving arrows, at least in Florida, is that it tells you how many feet are you from the exit. So it will say 100, 200, every 100 feet. So every 30 meters for those of you who haven't won the World Wars.
And it's pointing towards the exit.
Correct. It's pointing to the exit. So as you're swimming in, you will see the arrows pointing back to where you're coming from, and they will increase 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on every 100 feet. And sometimes in caves, like every 1,000, they will change colors, and like they'll add some things to make it easier. So in this case, what in the video is talking about, just to go back to it, because we've been talking for a while here, this guy, he realized that he lost the line. He reached out for it a couple times. He lost it, so he just started swimming. This is where what you talked about comes in and kicks in, which is, okay, I lost the line. I'm lost. Let's just say I'm lost. I don't know where the guideline is. Don't get lost further. Tie your reel. It's called a safety spool for a reason. It's for safety. Pull your safety spool. Tie it into a rock. Okay, I think the line is this way. I'm going to go that way and start sweeping. Oh, I couldn't find it? Let me reel myself back. Exactly. Okay, I'm going to go that way. In that angle, in that angle, in that angle.
It's a very organized search procedure, and
Absolutely.
You're probably going to find it that way.
Until you run into the line and you're back on. Instead of just swimming like this guy did, if this really happened.
Now, when you do refine the line,
yes,
you're not going to go back and rewind yourself in.
Just
Tie off on that thing.
Leave it,
and get out.
That's right.
We'll worry about your reel another time.
Exactly. That's another thing. But what this guy did is he went in, he kept swimming, found another line, which can happen. Like if you get lost, you can find a line to another tunnel or whatever. But if you find it, you should start seeing arrows every once in a while telling you that, hey, you're going the wrong way, or like the exit is that way. It made it sound in the video like Michael, in this case, he just kept swimming in and in and in and finding another room. Like, why? Just look at the arrows. And if there's low visibility, put your hand on the line and run into an arrow and be like, oh, wait.
I'm unclear on that. That's why I said
exit is that way.
I think he's already lost the line. That's why I was saying that.
Let's see.
Carbon dioxide was building in his bloodstream.
Oh, boy.
A side effect of overexertion at extreme depths. The
Okay.
more he breathed, the worse it got. His regulator, the device controlling his air supply, delivered oxygen, but it couldn't eliminate the creeping blackout forming at the edges of his vision. This was depth-induced blackout. one of the deadliest threats to deep divers. Then, the final mistake. His buoyancy was failing. Slowly, his body tipped forward, his weight dragging him downward. He blacked out before he ever hit the bottom. Meanwhile, Daniel had surfaced. His lungs burned from the required decompression stops, pausing at specific depths to allow nitrogen to leave the bloodstream and avoid decompression sickness, also known as the bends.
The whole burning
This happens when a
thing,
diver ascends too quickly,
never felt
causing dissolved nitrogen in the bloodstream
This
to
is
form
true.
bubbles. At high pressures underwater, the body absorbs nitrogen from breathing gas. If
Sure.
a diver surfaces too fast, the nitrogen doesn't have time to safely leave the body and forms bubbles in tissues and blood vessels. Symptoms range from joint pain, dizziness, and fatigue to paralysis or even death in severe cases.
That's true.
To prevent this, divers make decompression stops, pausing at specific depths to allow nitrogen to safely exit the body. Treatment typically involves oxygen therapy or a hyperbaric chamber, which helps dissolve the bubbles by simulating a gradual ascent. Daniel, at his 30-foot stop, hovered, scanning the basin for any sign of Michael. He couldn't see him anywhere. By now, he had realized that something was wrong. By the time he surfaced, other divers had arrived. They re-entered the cave, following the guideline back to the junction room, but Michael was nowhere to be found. The recovery operation began early the next morning as a team of highly trained cave divers assembled at the site. Given the extreme depths and poor visibility inside Diapolder's sink, the operation required a carefully coordinated effort. 3 teams of specialists, including expert recovery divers, decompression experts, and surface support personnel, prepared for the challenging descent. The search would not be easy.
Keep
The
showing
cave
Jonathan,
system was
it's funny.
vast, and any disturbance of the silt could instantly reduce visibility to near zero. The first team entered the water, following the guideline leading to the junction room. From there, they carefully navigated into the lower circuit, moving in slow, deliberate motions to avoid stirring up silt. As they reached the deeper sections of the cave, the cold and pressure became more apparent. At 200 feet, they switched to their deep gas supply, keeping
Worry about
close
it.
watch on their dive computers, which tracked their depth, gas consumption, and required decompression time. Minutes turned into hours as the teams methodically searched the cave. Finally, at 241 feet,
That's
one of the
Shangri-La.
divers' lights revealed a motionless figure on the bottom. Michael lay face down, his arms relaxed at his sides, his regulator still in his mouth. His mask was intact, showing no signs of a struggle, an indication that he had likely blacked out before he even realized he was in trouble. There were no signs of struggle. He had simply lost consciousness and drifted downward, his oxygen tank still half full. It took 7 hours to find him. Although they already knew the end result, they were all devastated when they found out what they suspected was actually true. Michael was gone. The rescue team secured his body and made their way towards the surface. The diving community mourned the loss of Michael. He had been young, talented, and ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. Those who knew him recalled how he often pushed himself, eager to match the veterans. Experts reviewing the accident concluded that Michael had likely been affected by nitrogen narcosis and depth-induced blackout, made worse by
What is
carbon
that?
dioxide buildup from
CO2?
exertion.
Maybe.
Losing the
It's just
guideline had
made-up
been the
terms.
critical mistake. Had he used a mixed gas setup, like trimix,
Yep.
a combination of oxygen, nitrogen, and helium, the effects of narcosis might have been reduced. But Michael had relied on compressed air, which became treacherous beyond 200
You
feet.
see,
I'm
how
glad
they mix it up.
It wasn't
Oh,
just
well,
a single
compressed
error
air,
that
okay.
cost him his
I mean,
life.
the gas is compressed whether you got helium or air. Just
Right. But I'm glad that he got trimix right,
got it
because
right.
all of these computer-generated, AI-generated videos that we watch say trimix
yeah, no, they
instead of
nailed
trimix.
that one.
But one thing that he mentioned is they use air, so they were an open circuit. They use air, and the maximum operating depth of air is 218 feet, and these guys passed 200, so they were borderline. Yeah, hyperoxia.
I don't know what their PO2 was. I could do it on a.
Well, we never heard the maximum depth that they went, but they early on the video they said they passed 200 feet, so they were pretty deep. Now, look, in the past, if you look into deep diving with air, there's people that were diving air to like 400 feet or whatever. Like, there's people that take it, but is really a gamble. Maximum operating depth of air is 218 feet, which is about 65 meters or something like that.
You could convulse is
Yeah.
the problem. It could
Yeah.
start making you convulse.
Correct.
Not to mention the nitrogen narcosis. Two different issues, both very serious.
Yeah.
It was a cascade of small, deadly mistakes, compounded by the merciless nature of the deep. Diapolder Sink had claimed another victim, and the depths would keep their secrets.
By the way, I no longer, if you notice, comment when I see tanks like that. And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
I've actually learned that's not necessarily wrong. I used to, I think it may be GUE that actually teaches that way of holding your tank. Now, I know we've learned in Cave Adventures and tank trim, it helps your trim, but
Not just your trim, but your like
I know, but
water dynamics.
I know, but
Drag.
there are many that don't teach that that's wrong, and GUE in particular, we got an argument once, a whole giant argument of criticizing us for saying you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
This is okay, and this is why. So I don't comment on it anymore. But when I look at it, it's painful.
No, I don't care.
I mean, if
Like,
my tank
yeah,
was
it
like
doesn't matter.
that, you would be like, we got to fix your tank.
I never
you
comment.
Would, you would tell me, though.
Yeah, of course.
Dude, you got to
Dude, what
fix
is
your
this?
tank.
What are you
look
doing?
like a
You look like a plus
Like a
sign in the
T.
water, yeah. Yeah, I don't comment either, but I do notice that a lot of people that criticize us, then I go see their pictures and videos and they look like this.
I know.
And I'm always like, I'm not gonna say anything, but I don't know if you should be criticizing anyone.
I like good tank trim. I think it helps in many ways.
Of course.
This next story will put you at unease, since
story
the
number
cavers
2.
went through something they had never would have imagined. On August 17th, 1996, a group of experienced cavers prepared for another day of exploration at a newly discovered cave in Tennessee that had already begun revealing its secrets. Rogers, Jack, Gerald, Fico, and Alan had spent the previous day digging through debris to open a narrow passage deep
Love
within the
doing that.
cave
Why,
system.
though?
Today they plan
show
to
you.
push further, hoping to uncover uncharted tunnels that could lead to even
show you.
greater discoveries. Cave exploration was more than a hobby to these men. It was an obsession.
Oh, yeah.
The thrill of crawling through the Earth's hidden chambers, squeezing through impossibly tight spaces,
As long as it doesn't
and
flood.
uncovering passages untouched by human hands was what drove them. But with the thrill came real danger. The weight of the Earth above
that-
them was a
is that
constant
me?
reminder that caves were unpredictable. And in a place like Hero Bucket Horror
David.
Hole, the risk of collapse was always present. The entrance to Hero Bucket Horror Hole was unassuming, a narrow opening hidden in a wooded hillside,
David
leading
would know.
down into the
Our
darkness.
friend
By the
David.
way, have you noticed that most of the caves have this crazy, evil, weird, nightmarish names? Why? Why do they have to be called the...
Whoever discovered it, I believe the rule is they can name it.
I know, but why the people that discover them name them that way?
Well, what are you going to name yours?
I mean, just whatever. Like, doesn't
Gus?
have to be... It doesn't have to be
Just like your whole
Devil's...
family's name Gus.
Devil's
would you just say
Horror
Gus?
Nightmare Hole.
I mean,
Like,
your whole family's
bro.
named Gus, so why not name the cave Gus? I'm not being critical. I'm just saying your dad.
Honey Badger Horror Hole. Like, what? Terror. Everything has the word horror, terror, devil,
Dramatic.
hell. Like, why? Just call it like Cloud 9 Hole. I don't know.
I like that name.
The team moved with practiced precision, each carrying their own specialized gear. Helmets fitted with high-powered headlamps, knee and elbow pads for crawling, gloves, and
really
rock
need
hammers
that.
for clearing debris. The deeper they went, the dustier the air became. Reaching the worksite, they assessed the passage they had dug the previous day. The walls were rough and unstable, with chunks of loose rock scattered around from their excavation efforts.
Is that really
it wasn't
exploring
perfect,
if you're making
but
your
it was
own hole?
passable. Now they had to go through a new
It does
passage
look
they
like
had
this.
discovered
I've
the
done
previous
this with
day.
David. It's exactly
It was a
like
narrow
that.
tunnel that inclined downwards.
Why?
Hardly had enough
I know why
space
I
for
like
a
it a
single
lot, though.
person to fit through comfortably. According to their years of experience, they knew that, although the space was tight, it wasn't a threat and no one's going to get stuck inside. Perhaps they weren't prepared for what would happen next.
I bet it flooded.
Jack went in first. He
Must have
maneuvered his
flooded.
body into the crawl space, turning onto his left shoulder to fit. The tunnel was barely 2 feet high, but not wide enough for him to get through on his stomach, forcing him to flatten himself in that position as much as possible. He inched forward slowly, pressing against the rough limestone floor
This
while
is-
pushing off with his feet. His chest scraped against the
water
ceiling,
comes,
and every
you're done.
breath felt compressed. Rogers
That's what I'm saying.
followed.
If this was flood, it
He
would
shifted
be
his body
so
to the
much
same
fun.
position.
Oh,
Lying
to
on
die
his
in.
right
Not
shoulder,
flooded
his
when you're
body
going through it
twisted
dry.
awkwardly.
No.
But
The
I have a
tunnel was
feeling.
too tight to move normally, so he had to drag himself forward using only his left arm, while pressing his boots against the walls to gain traction. The further in he went, the more constricted the space
Oh,
became.
no. Look
Ahead
at
of him,
this.
Jack had stopped. The path ahead was blocked. Loose rocks had collapsed into the passage
you're gonna
overnight,
have to go
forming a
backwards.
dense barricade of jagged debris.
Desperation.
Disappointed, he told Rogers they had to break them in order to move ahead. Rogers tried to reach for the tool
You
strapped
can
to his
talk,
belt,
that's an
but the
advantage.
tight walls made movement difficult.
I guess.
He twisted his arm painfully until he could grip the handle. He passed it
Gus,
forward,
back
and
the
Jack started
up.
chipping away at the rock, sending small clouds of dust floating back toward Rogers.
Oh,
The air
no.
became thick, and he coughed as fine debris coated his throat. While they focused on clearing the path, they remained oblivious to the deadly trap they were unknowingly setting for themselves.
Oh, no.
In mere minutes, the situation would spiral from nothing to catastrophic. A deep, gut-wrenching crack echoed through the passage as the slab of limestone behind Rogers suddenly peeled
Oh
away
my
from the
gosh.
wall. It was a massive chunk,
Oh, that's
loosened
bad.
by their previous digging efforts, and now, with nothing to hold it in place, gravity took over. The boulder slammed downward, crashing against the floor with an earth-shaking thud.
It's
Dust
over.
and fragments of rock exploded into the air,
Can you
momentarily
imagine?
blinding those outside the passage. The
Just imagine that's the two of us. I look back, I'm like, we can't get out. There is no panicking. You're just done. You'd be like, there's no reason to panic.
Like, what do you do at that point?
You just wait it out and die. I think.
Just wait it out and die?
What are you gonna do? I will hear the video. Let's continue, but I don't know.
I mean, you have to keep
You could
chipping.
try. You're gonna try your best to chip away.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
You gotta
like
try.
turn around and start chipping the big rock,
You
I
would?
guess.
You would.
I
or
mean,
would
you
you
have
keep
to.
working on the front one.
Well, you don't know where that's going. At least I know that I came from that, and
Yeah,
yeah, there were
I know.
rocks that fell, but like I don't know. That
guess
this
in
is
40
this is why I don't do this
four-
ridiculous activity.
40 and 50 years from now, you would be done chipping the rock behind you. Look at
Okay.
it. It's like Stone Mountain.
force knocked both Jack and Rogers forward, slamming Jack's head against the stones. His helmet absorbed most of the blow, but the shock left him disoriented. When he regained his senses, he realized something horrifying had happened. The rockfall had completely sealed the passage behind them. They had nowhere to go. The loose debris ahead still blocked their path, and now the only way out was gone. For a split second, nobody moved. Then came the realization. Jack and Rogers were trapped. Miraculously, Rogers wasn't crushed outright. As the slab fell, it pushed him forward, shoving him clear of its full weight just before it hit the ground. If he had been even a few inches further back, he would have been pinned against the floor, possibly killed instantly. However, they were still in deep trouble. The dust coating their throats was suffocating them, and
What
since
about
they
the
were
friends?
trapped with nowhere to go, the anxiety crept in. Rogers tried to push against the rock, but there was no space to move, trapped on all sides. His heartbeat pounded in his ears, drowning out everything else. Jack shifted slightly, trying to find room, but the cave walls pressed in. His breathing was fast, uneven, and the more he tried to slow it, the worse it got. Their bodies were pinned, unable to shift more than an inch, the rock sealing them in like a coffin. Panic crept in, the dizzying, suffocating fear of being trapped with no
Man.
escape. They
That's-
felt claustrophobic, and the anxiety made the nightmare even worse. But soon they realized panic was the enemy in tight spaces. They started telling themselves they'll get out of it and encouraged each other to sit tight and believe in their companions. The others rushed to assess the situation,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
the team sprang
Finally.
into action. Caving rescues were notoriously difficult. Any attempt to move large debris in a confined space risked triggering further collapses. Every decision had to be made carefully. Monty, knowing they needed better tools, immediately exited the cave and ran to a nearby friend's house, where he borrowed a large sledgehammer. In the meantime,
But there's
the
no
others
room.
began
Look.
working with what they had.
That's
Rock
how you gotta get
hammers,
there.
crowbars, and chisels, chipping away at the edges of the massive
When we
slab
do it, that's
in an
what you gotta
attempt
go
to
through.
weaken it. Inside the
That's
passage, now both Rogers and
gonna
Jack
happen.
kept their cool.
Don't
They
worry
knew
about
that
it.
if they hyperventilated, their bodies would consume oxygen too quickly. If they moved too much, they might dislodge more unstable rock. They focused on slow, steady breathing, conserving energy as they listened to the sounds of his friends breaking away the stone that held him prisoner.
I wouldn't think it would
The
be
work
airtight,
was slow
though. I
and
would think
exhausting.
They would still be
Every
getting air.
swing of the sledgehammer sent
This guy in the
shockwaves
front.
through the rock,
This guy keeps
causing
saying
small
nothing.
fractures, but not enough to break it completely. The confined space meant that only 1 or 2 people could work on the slab at a time, forcing them to take turns to avoid fatigue. The biggest concern was vibrations.
By the way, the 2 guys in front that are trapped, how are they going to turn around and work on that big rock?
I don't know how big the space
There's no
was.
way.
There's no
I've been
room.
in space like that with David.
You
There's-
can't turn around.
You cannot turn around.
Just have to keep going straight, no matter what.
You cannot turn around. Or you have to crawl out backwards. For sure.
Dang.
Too much force could send more rock
Look
tumbling
at that.
from the
Could
ceiling.
that guy turn around?
They had to be strategic, breaking off manageable chunks while keeping the surrounding structure intact. Outside the cave, the afternoon sun had begun to set, but inside, time had lost all meaning. The only light came from their headlamps, sweat mixing with cave mud as they worked tirelessly. Rogers, still recovering from his close call, joined in when he could, using a hammer and chisel to chip away at
How
the
about
edges
power
of the
tools?
fallen rock.
Would they
Finally, after 4
They don't
grueling
collapse the whole
hours,
cave.
Ficco delivered the final blow.
I don't know.
A carefully placed strike that sent a deep fracture through the middle of the slab.
Yes.
With one last push, they managed to break it apart into smaller sections, clearing enough space for Rogers to wiggle free. Jack followed. The moment he emerged, a wave of relief washed over the group. They had done it. The reality of how close they had come to tragedy was setting in. They realized that virgin passages, newly opened tunnels, were inherently unstable, and any signs of loose rock needed to be taken seriously. Digging through debris might open new paths, but it also weakened the surrounding structure.
done that.
For
What
Rogers
you
and
looking
Jack, it was a terrifying experience, but one that only deepened their respect for the unpredictable world beneath the earth.
Wow, dude. They survived.
That's a great ending. Can you believe they actually
That's
got them
awesome.
out, man?
That's awesome. And this was, well, I mean, it was in 96, so it's almost 30 years ago. But it would have been nice to bring this guy. Like, if I knew, this is what happens when you don't watch the videos, because
Yeah.
maybe we could have, like, had an interview with,
Amazing.
I don't know if those are the real names, but man, because then all these questions were like, how do you do? Can you turn around? Can you not? Like, what are you thinking?
Was the
We could have
air-
asked them.
Was the air that we were building up CO2? Could you hear those guys? I'm sure they could.
I mean, they're hammering on a rock by my
no,
feet.
but I mean, basically, hey, we got you.
Yeah.
We're working on it. We're gonna get you out. Just stay calm. Like you would need to hear that.
That
Me
is
and
so
you trapped
valuable.
in there. And
So
we got
valuable.
Mike on the other side
Yeah.
working to get us out. We'll be like, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Unbelievable! Wow,
That's
I'm
awesome.
so glad they got
I'm
out.
glad. It ended with a good...
I'm nervous. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know. And people watching this, and like we do this when the caves are flooded. A lot of people that watch our channel don't do any caving dry or wet whatsoever. So they must be right now having a panic attack. But they survived. So good news is they survived. It's crazy. There are some videos that we've watched in the past that have a close calls. Like there's a video we reacted to where a guy got wedged and it was against water and he started feeling and the water is coming up to like
remember
his
that.
face. That video was crazy. And in case you haven't seen it, I'm going to leave it right here so you can check it out. That's one of the OG videos. We reacted to that years ago, I feel like, and it was nuts.
It was
Because since then, I've always said I'm never going to do it. And now, I still say I'm never going to do it. So that's good to know that this is not for me.
Bye, everybody.